Anything you want to share on Aristotle and Aristotle's Poetics? Who can talk about like something that you, because you have studied Aristotle's before and Aristotle's Poetics as well, I think so, in 5th semester. So
yes,
can anyone talk about Aristotle?
Ma'am, the main idea that he is given in the Poetics, that art is imitation, and his idea is totally different from Plato. And he also defined tragedy, and also defined the plot, structure, etc. So I think that's it.
Yes, that's true. Very well said. Yes, anyone else?
Ma'am, he depend poetry, and he gave principle for tragedy.
All right. He talked about tragedy and epic poems as well, and then I think he gave the differences between epic and tragedy. Yes,
yes.
Asya?
And he also gives some characteristics of hero in tragedy.
Talk about the catharsis, the emotional outlet for the human being, and they also talk about that in drama plot structure is regular, and in epic we can skip one or two parts.
Okay. Very good. Yes, Rubina, you wanted to say something?
So I was saying he also described and gives some characteristics of a hero in tragedy, that he must be from
Yes.
a large family and
Yes,
all
that's
that.
true. That's tragic hero. Yes, that's a tragic hero. So you have read that Greek drama, Greek play,
Yes, ma'am. Oedipus Rex.
the
Yes, ma'am.
Oedipus complex or Oedipus Rex. Okay. Yes. So let's start with it quickly. Sorry. We'll go over it briefly, and then we'll discuss about the difference between Plato's and Aristotle's, their beliefs or their thought about poetry. So let's do Aristotle first, and then the difference between Plato and Aristotle is very important. So we will do that in the end, especially the thoughts about poetry. You already know that, but maybe you know 1 or 2 points about what they believed in or what they thought about poetry, but at least you need 3, 4, or 5 points to in that as well, regarding that as well. So Aristotle was born in 384 to 322 BCE, and he was an ancient Greek philosopher. Everyone knows that he was. One second. He was a teacher of Alexander the Great as well, and it's thought maybe he was a teacher of Alexander the Great. He was a founder of literary criticism. So Plato was the founder of like philosophy, of the Western philosophy. Basically, philosophy started from Plato, but the actual literary criticism started from Aristotle. Somebody is, guys, आप लोग time पे आया करें. After this, I'm not going to allow anyone to enter. It's 3:40. All right, so he was a founder of literary criticism because he actually talked about Plato's point and viewpoint about poetry. So he was against it. I mean, he it was an attack on the belief of Plato on poetry. So he was kind of critically evaluating the way he talked about the poetry and the poets. So he was against it. So in some ways, it was a kind of foundation that he laid to literary criticism, that is critically explaining why Plato was wrong and he was right, and why poetry and poets are not should not be considered as mad or madmen. So it was a start of literary criticism. So he was disciple of Plato and teacher of Alexander the Great. Dante called him the master of those who know. Right? And Plato referred to Aristotle as the mind. Plato was already, very interested in the facts and figures and factual things. So that's why he also talked about Aristotle as the mind. because he doesn't believe in imaginary things, and that's why he was against poetry as well. And main article was Corpus Aristotelicism. Okay, so reasons that he gave in favor of poetry were like poetics was the objections to dramatic poetry expressed by his teacher Plato in his Republic. Poetics, that is the book Poetics that he has written, there was an objection to dramatic poetry, which was actually expressed by Plato, because the points or the thought that Plato had about poetics, so he was against that. He had objected to it. It is a reply to his master, Plato. Plato considered imitation merely as mimicry or a servile copy of nature. Plato compared poetry to painting as well. Poetry also represents a copy of nature as it is. Poetry twice removed from reality, and it's a shadow of shadows. So these were the points which actually were discussed by Plato himself, and he talked about poetry in this way. We had discussed it yesterday, so there is nothing unclear in it. And what are the things that Aristotle has discussed in Poetics? These are the areas that are covered in Poetics. It's a short treatise of 26 chapters, 46 pages, and 6 parts. And introductory remarks on poetry is given and its classification. So he actually starts this book or this Poetics with the introduction to poetry. Then tragedy, poetic diction, narrative poetry, and tragedy, and then epic is compared with tragedy as well. And the objections which were laid by Plato, they are answered. So and the difference between the epic and tragedy, this is which was really an achievement. Like poetry को तो उन्होंने discuss किया है, and then the definition of tragedy that he has given, obviously no one has given that kind of definition to tragedy, and we still have memorized this definition, and we still use it wherever we want to, because it's the best and accurate definition of tragedy. And then the difference between epic and tragedy. So theory of imitation, according to Aristotle in his Poetics, is that there are three ways of imitation: means or medium of imitation, that is through action, through serious action, sound, form, and color. Then objects of imitation, that is when you imitate an object or the objects around you. Then manner of imitation, that is verse in dialogue, like through dialogues. There are different ways of imitation: narrative, dramatic, the writing manner, or the writing style of the author. So these are the three ways of imitation. We'll consider them or talk about them one by one. And this is the definition of tragedy, which is given by Aristotle. Tragedy is the imitation of action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in a language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, each kind brought separately in separate parts of the work, in the form of action and not in the narrative form, with incidents arousing fear and pity, and wherewith to accomplish the catharsis of such emotions. How many of you have memorized this definition, and they still remember it? Because it's very lengthy.
Ma'am, it's quite
and
long, very difficult to
yes, but this is the accurate definition of tragedy. जी आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है? जी, someone is trying to speak, but उनकी आवाज नहीं है. I think हसन बोल रहे हैं. All right. So it's yes, it's a very long definition, but still it's the accurate definition. It describes everything in it, whatever is included in tragedy. And yes, it's with each kind of artistic ornament. So at that time, the tragedy was actually written for the royal families, for the kings and queens, and the heroes were actually the kings and queens, or the sons of the kings and kings, and they were considered as superheroes as well. And then they had a flaw, the tragic flaw in them. So but it was at that time it was meant for only the the royal people. Now the way the tragedy is written is a bit different. but still, this is a very good and very accurate definition of tragedy. So the parts of tragedy which are explained in Poetics, again, there are 6 parts: song, spectacle, thought, more important, and then going to the other parts. Plot is the ordering of incidents. It can be simple, it can be complex. Plot is simple when the change in the fortunes of the hero takes place without peripety and discovery. What is peripety? Any idea? Ruby. जी बोले.
Reversal of misfortune.
जी, very good. So it's actually discovery and reversal. So when there is discovery, then there is I mean, they are related with one another. Ji guys?
I'm saying it's a turning point.
Turning point. Okay. So it's actually happens after discovery that there is a reversal in the plot. That's a peripetia or peripety. Okay, so I guess there is a problem from your sides as well, not just my side. Yesterday, most of your connections were good, and today, I guess maybe it's from my side only that I can't hear your voice properly. There is a lot of distortion. All right, complex. The plot is complex when it involves one or the other both. The peripety is the change in the fortunes of the hero, and the discovery is the change from ignorance to knowledge. Okay, so sorry, the simple one was that simple plot was that there was without peripety and discovery, but there is a change in the fortunes of the hero, and without peripety and discovery. And the complex one is with peripety and discovery, and that is it's a change from ignorance to knowledge. Actually, we didn't in our course we haven't studied the simple kind of a play that has a simple plot, a tragedy that has a simple plot. We started with the tragedy that was actually complex one, which was Oedipus Rex or Oedipus the King. So characteristics of plot are plot should be whole. It should have a magnitude, organic unity, probability and necessity, willing suspension of disbelief. So these again are the phrases that we have heard about so many times in the classroom, and the teachers have used it as well. Unity is one which is very important, and then willing suspension of disbelief. What is willing suspension of disbelief? Because you guys are well aware of everything. The lady who was talking, Rubina, I guess.
It's a literary title, but I can't remember its definition.
Acha. ठीक है.
Ma'am, repeat your question, please.
Willing suspension of disbelief. What is that?
No idea, ma'am.
Okay, so you're going to read about that because कोई ना कोई task तो आपको देना ही चाहिए. I'm thinking of giving you a task on LMS, not a complicated one, very simple one related to this tragedy or plot, so that you can do it. But I'll let you know.
Ma'am,
won't be.
It's the intentional avoidance of critical thinking, I think.
Sorry?
Suspension of disbelief.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
जी नदीम बोले आप बीच में कोई और बोल रहे थे.
Suspension of disbelief means that the intentional avoidance of critical thinking or logic when you don't think in a logical way. I think.
Okay. All right. So we are not going to talk about it further. Let it be a kind of a surprise or a secret for you guys to explore, because I was thinking of having a question related to that, and still, I mean, and also your voices are distorted. So the answers are not so much clear, but I agree with you. Who was speaking? I think it was Nadeem. All right. So formative elements of a plot, which I think everybody knows about it. One is peripeteia and agnosis, and then suffering, which is very important, an important part of tragedy. And we have already discussed, one is reversal of fortune, the other one is recognition or discovery of truth. That is the special name called an agnosis. And then there is suffering, destructive or painful action. So the hero actually doesn't die, but he suffers a lot, and then he loses most of the time. He loses the wealth. So that's a painful and destructive action. Characters are the agents for moving according to the plot, and essential features of characters are that characters should be good, characters should be appropriate, should be true to life, and should be consistent. That was these characteristics were defined at the time of Aristotle, and it can be changed now. I mean, the characteristics of the characters can be changed a little bit, and they are changed a little bit according to the age and time right now. And they were true as well. They and the kings and queens. Till Shakespeare, the stories were about only the kings and queens. It was after Romanticism that they started writing about the other topics, and especially the topics which were not just not just belong to the upper class or the elite class. What is the intellectual element in a tragedy? It is the ability of the dramatist to say what is possible and appropriate. So it's the intellectual element, and it is actually decided by the author or the writer or dramatist. We cannot go into detail of it, but like the introduction is very important. Then the emotional effect, production of emotional effect, especially when there is suffering and the tragic hero is suffering from pain or destruction. We have emotional connection with it. So it actually depends on the writer or the dramatist, when he talks about it. Diction and style, again, for that as well is for tragedy. Diction is the choice and arrangement of words and images in the literary composition. There are 6 types of words: current or ordinary words, foreign terms borrowed or dialects, metaphors, ornamental periphrases, invented words, not invented but made new, lengthening or shortening. So at that time, and even at the time of Shakespeare was actually famous for coining words and making up his own words, like coining 2 words, separate words, and making compound words. And they didn't exist even at that time, but they became famous. So even the Greek writers, they used to, because we have studied the English version of those plays. So if you had the chance to read the original, not read obviously, but look at the original text, the writers had this liberty of making new words or coining new words. Metaphors are obviously there. They are there. Metaphors ke baghair to, I mean, you can't even give a moral lesson without metaphors. Whether it's moral or political, there has to be a lesson in the plays, especially in tragedy. So metaphors has to be there. Foreign terms were borrowed when the kings, they travel to different places, or they have come to a place, especially in Oedipus, after traveling from another place, and he has come to Thebes now. So traveling has to be there. When there is traveling, then obviously foreign terms will be there as well. And then shortening, the length is intentionally shortened, or the word is lengthened. I mean, it has made longer than usual. So these like, especially when you add prefixes er and est intentionally. There is no word, but the writer can do that. So nobody would object to it as well, and they also become a little bit famous as well. Songs or melody, basically because of the chorus. So if chorus is there, and especially it is there in all the Greek dramas, Greek tragedies. So when there is chorus, there has to be songs or melody, and it's the pleasurable addition to the play. It's in a tragedy, song is provided by the chorus. So prologue is given by the chorus, choric song, episode, sorry, and exode, and then epilogue as well. So these and sometimes in the Greek tragedies, the comments that are given by the chorus, mostly comments are given by the chorus, and then when there is no one to answer any question of the stranger, then chorus intervenes, and chorus gives the answer. So at that time, chorus had a lot of what was considered as the important character as well. But after some times, after the Greek plays, chorus was still there, but chorus had less part to play. Especially Dr. Faustus. If you have studied Dr. Faustus, you can see that chorus is still there, giving prologue and epilogue, and sometimes introducing Mephistopheles or the plans of Faustus and Mephistopheles, but less as compared to how chorus was participating in Oedipus. So spectacle or stage effect is also very important, especially for tragedy. But the not shown stage, and I mean the act of violence is not shown, but blood can be shown when that action has been taken place. Killing is not shown. So that is skipped, but spectacle is also very important. Spectacle is a mode of imitation by which the story is presented on a stage before an audience. It is the site of disaster, and Aristotle calls this can raise fear and pity in the spectator. Yes, I very much agree with it. Not just the dialogues and the condition of the character or the hero can pity and fear, but also the stage and the spectacle, stage decoration, stage effects, and spectacle can also raise the fear and pity in the audience. Especially as I've just told you, the destructive sites and the sites killing of someone, or death death scene of someone, that really can cause fear and pity. Types of spectacles are plot, character, and agnosis, hamartia. So these can create can arouse pity and fear in the because whatever is happening in them, especially in hamartia or in gnosis, people do feel bad for the hero. Epic and tragedy, the difference between them is also explained in Poetics. Poetry is divided into epic or narrative poetry and dramatic poetry on the basis of manner of imitation. So epic can also be called as a narrative. There is dramatic poetry on the basis of manner of imitation. Epic is the narration of an action in verse, and tragedy is the dramatic representation of an action. So epic also talks about the hero, but epic mostly talks about the heroic deeds of the hero, and it's a kind of storytelling. The narration is there, and sometimes the a traveling journey and the heroic deeds, they are actually glorified in epic. Usually the hero is exaggerated. I mean, he is glorified, but a lot of exaggeration is there. So just like in Paradise Lost, the Satan was, I mean, it's an epic as well. So the Satan was actually more glorified than Adam, which to which people also objected. But in tragedy, it's more of the dramatic representation, and all these aspects that we have discussed, these are there, which are not there in epic, obviously. Similarities between epic and tragedy: use of refined diction. Both in tragedy and epic, the poet should know the art of telling lies the right way. So refined action is diction is there. Both of the kind of poetries that when they were written, the authors or the dramatists and the poets, they used very very elevated kind of words, very glorified words, and it was all refined. They were not like normal words. Normal language nahi thi. It was not normal language. It was first of all in poetry, so it has. I mean, it definitely shouldn't be. If it's not written in prose, then it select very difficult words, very high and elevated kind of words, which are suited only for poetry. And then if it's about a hero, then some new kind of adjectives and difficult kind of words definitely would be added. So it was very refined language. And both in tragedy and epic, poets should know the art of telling lies in the right way. So this is what actually do. And telling lies the right way, that is exaggeration. Again, the thing that I've already discussed, that is exaggeration, is there. I mean, maybe, you know, the point that the poet is making or the writer is making is right. It's true. But obviously the poet has to add some pleasure to it, and that is, जो कहते हैं ना, मसाला भी लगाना पड़ता है. So there is a lot of exaggeration which might not be, you know, true. Both should have the ability of artistic imitation. So mimesis has to be there. Imitation, the writers of both the type of poetry, they have to know what is, you know, imitation, how to mimic. Difference between epic and tragedy is that epic is narrative and it's long. It's actually very, very long. And tragedy is dramatic, must be confined to a single revolution of the sun. Single revolution of the sun means it should take place during the day. I mean, only on one day. On the same day, everything happens. There is a plot construction, there is a climax, and then there is a reversal, recognition, reversal. It all happens on that single day, just like Oedipus. So it has to be confined to a single day. That's very important of tragedy. Now the rules of tragedy might have been changed, but this was the case at that time. And epic is it can have like the sequels of the movies, uske parts hote hain, wo khatam hi nahi hote. And then unity of action. In epic there is a unity of action and use of 1 meter heroic couplet. So these are the rules of epic. And then all elements of tragedy, not song and spectacle. The elements of tragedy might be there in epic, but there is no song and no spectacle. And there is unity of action, but the other unities are not mentioned because there are 3 unities in tragedy. 1 meter heroic couplet. So there is 1 meter kind of a heroic couplet which is very long. And then in tragedy there are 3 unities. We already know that, uses various meters, and then 6 elements of tragedy. All the 6 elements of tragedy is there. So use of 1 meter heroic couplet. Did you understand this phrase? Guys, are you with me? So gaya? Acha.
No, ma'am, idhar hi hai.
Acha. So right. So this is iambic pentameter, actually blank verse. Epic is written in blank verse at that time. Now, the rules might have been changed, but it's couplet. It's written in couplet, and it's iambic pentameter, like the blank verse. At that time, it was very famous. So the meter remains the same for all the lines. Right? The meter remains the same. There is no change in the pattern. Like in drama, there can be a sentence or line of 2 words, because it has dialogues. There can be a 2 words line, and then in the next 3 or maybe 6 words line. I mean, it depend on the characters, the way they are speaking and the way they are having dialogues. So there is no fixed meter in tragedy. But in epic, the meter or the length of the lines are the same. That is blank verse. So that is iambic pentameter. For example, Paradise Lost. You can read that because everything. I mean, from the start till the end, all the lines are in same pattern, same rhythm, same meter. That is iambic pentameter. Okay, rules of tragedy. It is an imitation of an action, and he should imaginatively visualize the action. He should, like the author or the dramatist or the playwright, should imaginatively visualize the action. He should work out the emotions with the very gestures of his dramatic personages. Work out the emotions. Obviously, He has to, again, the same thing, he visualize the action, visualize the emotions, and if at that time, because the tragedy or the dramas, they were actually played first and then written afterwards. So the writer or the dramatist had to work on the gestures of the characters, and how can they raise emotions using their gestures. He should begin with the universal form of the plot, adding the names and episodes later. Usually the themes and the dialogues that are written in the tragedies are universal, and they have a lesson for every age, especially the tragic flaw which is there in every person. I mean, flaws are there. Every person has flaws, and those flaws can have serious uh, circumstances, serious outcomes as well. Those, because of those flaws, not just they are the ones who suffer, but the other people around them, they also suffer. So and then the lesson that we learn after because of the these tragedies, that is universal. Although in times of when the Greek plays were written, at that time, I mean, exaggeration was zyada thi that the gods would punish, and the person who was a king would automatically all of a sudden become so poor that he started begging. I mean, it doesn't happen that it doesn't happen in normal life, in in natural in normal life. It doesn't happen that and your talents, right? So that there is a lot of lesson which is actually universal. We might not, there might, some of the things might not be same in the tragedies of these days or today, but still the themes, the lessons, um, the dialogues, most of them, they're universal. Even in Hamlet, Shakespeare's plays, the sentences and the dialogues said by Hamlet, they have become universal, and they especially of Hamlet's dialogues. So they people still use those dialogues, and they've already discussed before. All right, there is complex tragedy. It consists of reversal and recognition of truth. Then tragedy of suffering, which is tragedy depicts suffering only. Tragedy of character more involved than plot. Just like in Oedipus, character was more involved. Tragedy of spectacle, it depends upon the sensational effects produced by the actors, the costume designers, and other mechanical and artificial devices. So this is true, especially for for these days. Nowadays, I mean, it's more the spectacle is more important. So these were the types of tragedy. Types of recognition is also there. One is anagnosis, which is discovery of recognition of truth. And how can that be, like signs or objects or symbols? Uh, Usually the character doesn't understand those signs and symbols. Maybe they want to hear the truth from their ears, or they want to see everything clearly in order to believe it. But there are lots of signs, and there are lots of symbols. The audience gets to know the truth, but character ko samajh nahi aati, khud se hero ko nahi samajh aati. Author tells himself. Sometimes the author or the writer can also expose, especially from the mouth of chorus, they tell the truth as well, so that the audience at least knows it. Discovery of memory, discovery from memory, process of reasoning, which was there in Oedipus as well as Hamlet as well, that reasoning was more. I mean, they used to reason a lot, think a lot, meditate a lot. Discovery arising from the false reasoning as well. But anyways, these there are so many ways to recognize the truth, or when there's so many ways of recognition or knowing the truth as well. People don't accept that, but there are so many ways to do that. And even in normal life, in in daily life, we know what is right and what is wrong, but we just don't accept it. We are too stubborn to accept it. Superiority of tragedy over epic. So according to Aristotle and whatever he has written in book, tragedy has superiority over epic. It has all the elements of an epic. This is tragedy. It has all the elements of an epic and has also spectacle and song, which the epic lacks. Unity of action only in tragedy, not in epic. And then simply reading the play without performing it is already very potent. It's very boring, right? It doesn't have any effect on the audience if you're just simply reading the play without performing or without any emotions, catharsis, without any association, without like look at the ups and downs in life. Life is not like that. Life is not like epic. And life is like tragedy where there is ups and downs. So we can relate ourselves more to tragedy than to epic. Tragedy is shorter, that is more compact, concentrated effect. So obviously it's shorter, so it is more compact as well, precise. And ideal tragic hero.
This point.
जी दोबारा बोलेंगे, आपकी आवाज नहीं आई. आई थिंक मैं पहले भी कह चुकी हूँ, आज बहुत ज़्यादा
ट्रेजेडी इज मैम शायद वो कहना चाह रहा है कि ये पॉइंट रिपीट कर.
Tragedy is shorter, that is more compact. All right, so tragedy is obviously shorter than epic. We already know that. Epic is very lengthy, so it doesn't focus on one thing. It focuses, there's so many aspects of the hero, of the person that is glorified, or of the thing that is glorified. Uski bahut sari cheezein hain wo discuss karte hain. But in tragedy, it is more compact. It means that the lesson or the theme that the author wants to work on or focus on, that is actually focused upon. And the lesson that the author wants to give through the story of that hero or the tragic hero, that is more concentrated, right? So because it's shorter and it's precise, and it's very easy to understand that anything that is lengthy or extra lengthy will not have an effect on the readers, right? Because when it's something is lengthy, you tend to talk about or speak about so many things. It's not precise, right? Especially in your papers. आप लोग अपने एग्जाम्स में ही देख लें, जो लंबा लंबा लिखते हैं, their answers are not very focused upon, and they're not organized, they're not systematic. But when you are writing precise, to the point and compact, that is more focused upon, and all the paragraphs, they are coherent with one another. वरना ये होता है ना कि जी आप when it's lengthy, then obviously the paragraphs, they don't match each other. एक paragraph में कोई और बात की, दूसरे paragraph में randomly you talk about something else, and then in the third one about something else. So when it's shorter, it's compact, and you can focus upon your point better than something which is longer or lengthy. I hope it answers. Ideal tragic hero,
Okay.
he should, all right, he should not be an utter villain. Tragic to hai he, but obviously he's a hero. So the hero in tragedies are basically superheroes. They are exposed as, or they are introduced as superheroes in the start. They are brave, they are courageous, they fight monsters. They can fight with so many. They have fought in battles as soldiers, like in Hamlet. So they are considered, and they are more wise as well. They are considered to be more wise, but obviously they have some flaw, but it doesn't make them a villain. He should neither the perfectly good, not utterly bad. He should not be perfectly good, not utterly bad, and then he must be intermediary sort of a person. He must possess both qualities and weaknesses. He must be a human being. And then hamartia, that is tragic, not flaw, tragic flaw. Sorry, flaw. It's flow likha hua hai. Tragic flaw. So obviously the hero will have good qualities and then bad qualities or weaknesses as well. Lekin weaknesses bahut zyada nahi hoti. There is only one tragic flaw that the character or the tragic hero has, which affects not just himself but all the people around him, and that can be like pride, or lack of taking actions. So even pride is something which can cause destruction to the person himself and to the people around him, like in Oedipus. He was proud of his wisdom, of his talent, of his heroism as well. So that pride actually destroyed him and people around him. And then he must be a human being. He is shown a human being. The heroes are shown human beings, but they have super-like powers or super-like qualities. Gee, guys, I think it's clear. Who is like trying to join right now? Abhi class khatam hone wali hai, and Amir Hamza was actually sent me a request right now. So anyways, I want to finish the class here because I have second and then third class as well. So I hope I'll see you guys on Tuesday, and I'll upload the lectures as well. Please remind me once in the group at night. I do remember it, but still remind kara dijiyega. And if there are any questions, please ask me. In the next class, we'll do Horace and some other philosophers, but it's going to be very precise so that we are